All right. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. Accountability with impact. Coaching in a performance-based culture, which, we talk about that all the time. Everything in our business is encompassing performance. Your activity is performance, your results are performance, your compensation is performance, your promotion is performance. When we interview, we talk to people about performance, what expectations are. When we bring them in, there's constant coaching throughout the day. When you're doing midday calls, you're looking at their performance for the day, making sure that if they're running a little bit behind in the morning, that they push through the afternoon. When we're talking about promotions, we get on and we look at dashboards. We look at where they currently are, make sure that they hit certain metrics for promoting. But this business is a performance-based business, and we have to make sure that that culture is there. And then we have to make sure that we support that culture by having the tough conversations. So, got a pretty good little PowerPoint here with a lot of good information, some coaching tips, and some other things. So, we're going to dive in, and I'm going to do my best to be done in less than 30 now. So, the goal today is to reframe the confrontation and deviations as a leadership tool. I know this may surprise some of you, but there are definitely agents that deviate. Even leadership will deviate, so it's important that as we're inspecting what we inspect and we identify certain areas that are clearly a deviation, whether that inspection be based on numbers and conversation or that inspection is based on an observation. When you identify deviations, we have to make sure that we are reframing that as a leadership tool, teaching a structure for effective coaching conversations. Keyword there is effective, and practice handling the tough performance discussions. So they are tough calls, especially whenever these guys are independent contractors. We have to be careful with our verbiage. There's nothing that is quote unquote required, but we do reward good behavior, and reward good behavior puts the emphasis on their effort that can remove the word require when you're actually rewarding good behavior. So, why is this important? Just what I said. There's no base salary. We're independent. Performance is everything. Your compensation is 100% tied to your performance. Avoiding tough talks sends the wrong message, and accountability drives income, retention, and culture. We talk about this all the time. Inspect what you expect is an accountability tool. So confrontation equals clarity and care. And I think sometimes confrontation gets a bad rap. People that are quote unquote confrontational. I tell people all the time, I'm not afraid of confrontation. To me, confrontation is just having tough conversations. I think there's a good way and a bad way, to handle confrontation. So don't look at confrontation as something negative. Look at confrontation as something positive. When I have a confrontational conversation with somebody, the idea is to help them get better where they are. So we need to change that dynamic, that mindset towards confrontation. Clarity is basically helping them hold the standard. Care is investing in the individual. We've heard the saying before, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And sometimes our confrontation can come across as I'm not hitting my goals. For example, hey guys, we've got to pick up the activity and close more cases because I have to have 10 cases closed this month. I have to have, come on, we got to write more business, guys, because I'm not hitting my goals. And in leadership, remember, it's not about your goals. Usually in leadership, if you get everybody else to give you their goals and you add those numbers up, it should exceed your goals. So I want to make sure they know that I'm investing in them for them, not investing in them for me. The byproduct should be how it comes back into our home and blesses us. Unclear expectations are unkind. So I try to do my best. I know I missed this mark plenty of times, but I try to do my best when I'm explaining things of asking questions and making sure that we're crystal clear on things so there's no unclear expectation moving forward. If I'm expecting one thing and you're hearing something else, then when we have a tough conversation, it's going to be a tougher conversation because you didn't understand it the way that I meant it. So make sure that your expectations are clear. What happens when we don't confront? I think this is pretty self-evident, but just as a reminder, their performance slides. So when you don't have that tough conversation, when you don't confront deviations, you're going to watch their activity slip. You're going to watch their percentages slip. You're going to watch their results slip. You're going to watch their income slip. And then you're going to watch them slip right out the back door. Without confrontation, even your top reps get frustrated. I've had, in my years of experience, I've had top performers actually get frustrated and quit because their performance began to slide and nobody was there to have the tough conversation. And I've asked them, I'm like, what in the world? I can't believe that you're quitting. I mean, you've done so well. And well, I just don't know this is for me, or I'm burnt out, or, times have changed, or they make all these excuses. And when I ask them, well, what could we have done different? Number one answer I would get was, I wish you would have held me more accountable. I wish, number one answer. I mean, I'm envisioning different conversations I've had with different people throughout the years that their number one, not the only answer, but number one answer I got was, I wish you would have held me more accountable. And sometimes when you have somebody who is doing well, we feel like the right thing to do is just let them go. Hey, cut the reins, and let them loose. And the reality is that's not the best thing to do. Even a racehorse on a racetrack still has reins, and there's a jockey driving that race. And you are the jockey in this race. You've got to make sure, hey, celebrate the top reps. Don't frustrate them by beating their chops. Celebrate their wins, but also have that tough conversation with them if you see deviation. And then another thing that happens when you don't confront it, we said in the very beginning, to make sure we keep a performance culture. If you don't confront deviations, then your culture will erode. And culture, guys, is everything in our business. And then, of course, the leaders lose credibility because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. The agent starts getting that mentality of, I hate when I hear agents say that I'm writing your check. Well, you're writing your check first. My overwrite doesn't equal what your commission and bonus is, but I want to make sure they know I'm bringing value also by having those conversations with them and helping them go to the next level. I haven't had an agent yet that's made X number of dollars that wouldn't be okay with some loving coaching that moved them to the next level. And instead of making 100 this year, they made 110, or instead of making 150 this year, they made 160. So that's what coaching does, is helps them get better. It helps them keep eyes, on the big picture and not just on what Monday through Friday looks like. There are three types of performance gaps. It's either a lack of skill, which means they don't know how to do it. It's a lack of will. They just don't want to do it. Or there's a lack of clarity where they didn't know what to do or how to do it. And so we want to make sure that, again, we're having the conversations of clarity on expectations, clarity of what their skill set is. And then the old saying is, actions speak louder than words. Their lack of will is evident by the effort that they put forth. That's also inspected through conversation and through dashboards. So always remember to diagnose before you coach. Ask yourself, which type of gap is this? And then tailor your approach accordingly. So which type of gap is this? What am I looking at? When we do reviews on dashboards, and I'm on a Zoom a lot of time with agency directors, and we are looking at data, you'll see several areas of opportunity. You can bog somebody down if you try to go over everything they need to improve, which is why we talk about the dashboard, managing it from the left to the right. I always look at their activity first. So that goes back to their will. Are they putting forth the effort? And I find more times than not, guys, that their activity is low. So that's the one controllable. They can control how many businesses they walk into. Everything else is a percentage that we influence. So when I look at their will, how much effort they're putting forth, and I have the conversation about what the expectation is: 4 walk-ins an hour, 2 DMs an hour, 1 presentation and close an hour. So if they close one, they're not going to get an hour for the presentation and an hour for the close. That's 2 hours. They're already getting an hour for the presentation, 30 for the DM met, and 15 for the walk-in. They're already getting an hour 45 when you count it. But the presentation and close is combined. So really, I'm looking at presentations because the close, I couldn't have a close without a presentation, but I don't give them additional time for the close because it's already factored in there. 4 walk-ins an hour, 15 minutes each. 2 DMs met an hour, 30 minutes each. 1 presentation an hour. So when I look at the dashboard left to right, if their DM met is in red or a low yellow, that's going to be the first area of opportunity. They may have everything to the right that needs help, but I'm going to really hone in on the DM met. If the DM met is 25, 6, 7, somewhere around there, I think the agency right now is about 27. Green is 30. But if the DM met is, mid-20s, mid-yellow, then I'm going to go to that next red. Because, yeah, I can move 25 to 26, 26 to 27, but it's a whole lot easier to move that 10 to 13 or 14 because I'm so far off the mark, So I want to move to that next next red zone or low yellow zone, looking at my chart left to right, and then tailor my approach accordingly based on the conversation that I want to have. And I tailor it by having the ACT framework. This is an acronym for A, ask for perspective. C, clarify the gap. Make sure we're on the same page. And T, tie back the conversation to the mission and the impact of corrective behavior. So the ACT framework is ask, clarify, and tie back. So ask for perspective. Hey, Gerald, can you walk me through what happened this week? I was looking at the dashboard here and I see, can you walk me through what happened this week? Get them to open up and start talking about what's going on. Get some clarity on the week. I was rolling into town Monday, had a flat tire. It's been years since I've had a flat tire. Well, you're going to have people who have flat tires. You're going to have people who, somebody gets sick. They get called to pick up a kid at school. The biggest thing for me is communication. Now, my flat tire happened in the evening, but if Nikki was expecting me at the office and I was headed that way with a flat tire, well, I'll tell you what, I'll let Nikki know Tuesday morning I had a flat tire because I had to take care of that Tuesday morning. So communication is important when there's a deviation from the expectation. But in getting perspective and clarity, can you walk me through what happened this week? Or what's been getting in the way of your activity goals? Your goal was this, and this was your result. You mind sharing with me what's been getting in the way of your activity goals or what got in the way of your activity goal this past week? And guys, this is just bringing it back to the controllable for them. Bring it back to what their goals are, which when we tie it back to the mission of why we're having the conversation and why they're doing what they're doing, it's going to drive the point home for them. C, clarify the gap. This is so important to me. Use facts, not I feel like or it seems. When you are talking hard data, you got to make sure that it's based on what you see. Now, you're going to hear, oh, well, I did more than that. Okay. Well, please make sure that you're checking Epic throughout the day because if it's not in Epic, it doesn't exist. And guys, I've already set that framework for you years ago when Epic first rolled out. The home office pushed that because they were checking our data to make sure we were adopting Epic. So when they would call and I would start calling ADs and they're like, no, that's not right. We did more than that. I'd tell the home office, they told me if it's not in Epic, it doesn't exist. Well, I don't believe there's an agency director in the agency today that speaks anything different than if it's not in Epic, it doesn't exist. Now, there are times Epic has a lag, and we are, in process of getting a new platform called Atlas, which will probably be here 2027. So, depending on this recording, if we're still using it next year and Atlas is here, then I guess we're talking about Atlas. But whether it's Epic or Atlas, using hard numbers and their commitments, you committed to 74 walk-ins this week based on your plans, and you hit 47. Do you mind telling me, what was hindering you from being able to hit your goal this week? And then stay neutral and non-judgmental. Let them talk. Let them get them out. Let them make excuses. Don't interrupt them. The biggest mistake I see in leadership sometimes is we ask a question and then we don't let them get it out. Let them get it out. Take notes and then comment on the things they say. And when they're making excuses, just politely remove the excuses. Stay neutral and non-judgmental. And then how do we tie it back to the mission and impact? Link it to their income goals. You should be having MROs filled out. If you're not having MROs filled out, it is a great tool to use whenever you're doing accountability conversations. MRO is their minimum realistic and optimistic income goal. Minimum just to pay their bills. Realistic based on our data, if they put forth the effort, what they should be able to do. And optimistic is what they would like to do. And those change over time. But link it to their income goal. Link it to their leadership path. Remember, everything in our business is performance driven. If they want to be an SA, they have to hit certain metrics. If they want to be a GA, they want to be an AD, make sure that you're tying back the why of the conversation back to the mission and the impact of them not making changes or them putting forth the effort to see their numbers increase. And then personal values, especially if it's somebody who's in leadership, your good leaders, your great leaders care about others. So their personal value, whenever I talk about their core values, their integrity, being honest, and then, of course, caring about their fellow man. So if they've got an agent on their team and they're not hitting metrics, I had a call with a GA yesterday talking about their numbers and how that affects the team. You've got to be true to the numbers. Make sure that, you're putting forth the effort to help somebody else have the same opportunity that was given to you. And then, of course, remind them the impact of falling short is going to put all of that at risk. Falling short of your goals, not putting forth the effort, not staying focused on the process is going to cause you to possibly not hit your income goal, possibly not get that promotion. And then, of course, if you're in leadership, it's going to cause your team to actually suffer. So the ACT framework, use silence to allow reflection. A lot of times in leadership, when you're having a meeting, you can do a lot of talking when you're teaching or training or whatever. And even when you're doing coaching, you can do a lot of talking, but make sure that you pause to allow them to answer and allow silence or use silence to allow reflection. Try to avoid the blaming tone, the finger pointing. Just always keep it based on the fact, based on their goal, based on the mission and the impact. Always end with a clear next step. Whatever the goal is, I was trying to think of scenario. If their goal was 74 walk-ins and they only had 50, the clear next step is, I want to see improvement next week. 50 divided by 74 means they were 67.5% of their goal, 68%. So if I graded their activity this week, it would be a 68. The clear next step for me would be, let's make sure that we are, hitting that goal next week. And then I'm going to log this 68%. I'm going to log that report card. And then next week when I have that conversation, and they are 45 of 75, that's 60. They've gone backwards. Hey, you know, share with me if you don't mind. Your goal was to have 75 this week. I was proud of you, man. I was one up next level. I know we fell short last week and you said this, and this happened. What happened this week? I mean, we went backwards. You only hit 60% of your goal. And then be quiet. Use silence. Let them think about it. Let them think the answer out. Don't interrupt them. Many times when the silence gets a little uncomfortable, we want to step up and speak. We want to start giving them, well, did this happen? Well, is this? Well, no, let them respond. And then if it's the goal is 75, but they do 65, now that's 87%. That's a big celebration. That's moving it in the right direction. So always end the conversation with what the next step is going to be and make sure we're clear on what the expectation is. So here's a sample script if you wanted to kind of write out what your conversation was going to look like on confronting poor performers. So in acknowledging the issue, revisit the original conversation, set the tone. Hey, Brian, I want to have a follow-up conversation with you. When we started training, we had a very important discussion about commitment and accountability. We both agreed that your success in this role depends on your 100% commitment. And I committed to giving you everything I have in return. Well, what are we referencing this? We're referencing the talk, right? In the beginning, we had that conversation and how their success was 100% on their shoulders. And I commit to also give 100%. But what's our follow-up in that? If there's ever a point that I care more about your success than you do, then we're going to have another conversation. So we've worked together for a while now, and I've noticed a gap between what we talked about in terms of your commitment and the results we're seeing. I want to be direct here because your success is my priority, but it's clear that something isn't aligning with the expectations we set in our last conversation. So all you're doing is just laying the framework, the groundwork to have the conversation and the why behind it. So you're acknowledging the issue through facts, through prior conversation. Now I want to clarify the expectations and reiterate what's expected. As we discussed before, I'm committed to you, but you also need to be 100% committed to your own success. We've set clear targets, and you know how this works in a performance-based environment. Here's where we are. You've committed to 75 walk-ins, but your actual numbers was only 45, which last week was 68%, and this week is 60%. These numbers are not where they need to be for you to succeed, and it's critical that we understand why this gap exists. Now we need to take action. So the question is, why haven't we seen the follow through on what we agreed upon? Hey, there's the question mark, right? There's the pause. Why haven't we seen the follow through on what we've agreed upon? Let them make all the excuses they're going to make, and then slowly but surely remove those excuses. I want to understand what's going on. Is it a matter of effort, or is there something else that's causing you to fall short? Are you having difficulty with a particular aspect of the process, or do you feel like the work we're doing together isn't translating into results? Well, that's powerful right there. I've said many times, is it a matter of will or a matter of skill? It's always either will or skill. This kind of maybe brings a little bit more clarity, a matter of effort, or something else that's caused you to fall short. Are you having difficulty with a particular aspect of the process, or do you feel like the work we're doing together isn't translating into results? And again, every time you see a question mark, or every time you ask a question, you want to pause and listen to the agent side of the story. Well, I'm here to help you identify challenges and make adjustments, but you need to tell me honestly what's going on. If I'm not meeting your expectations, I'm willing to adjust, but I need to know where you stand. So an accountability check to reaffirm the accountability and commitment. Well, this is where accountability becomes critical. Remember when we had our initial conversation, or remember when we had the talk? I told you that if at any point it seemed like I cared more about your success than you did, then our relationship would have to dissolve. I can't give you more commitment than you give yourself. So let's be clear. If you're not ready to give 100%, if you're not all in, then I need to know now. we can stop wasting time and I can focus on other agents who are ready to do what it takes. But if you're ready to make a change and step up, then I'm here to help you work through whatever's holding you back. Guys, I mean, that's just cut and dry, short and sweet, to the point. I mean, at the end of the day, there's no need in sugarcoating it or wasting time. We had the talk up front. We've had conversations throughout the weeks of what the expectation is. We've observed them. We know whether or not they have the skill set, and if they don't, whether or not they're putting the effort to gain the skill set. And then based on their activity, whether they're putting forth the effort to get there. And if they're not putting forth the effort, I've said this before, you're taking away from somebody else who's putting forth the effort. If I've got somebody giving it 100%, but I'm spending time with somebody over here who's giving it 50%, I feel like I'm robbing from the person who's giving 100, because that person who's giving 100 probably ain't at 100 yet. So the more I can invest in them, the quicker I get them to where they want to go. Now, I'm not saying I won't help the other people also, but they've got to be all in. And we have that conversation in the beginning in the talk, and we have that conversation throughout their training. So final question. So where do we go from here? Are you ready to commit to your success with the same level of seriousness and effort that we agreed upon when we started? If you are, we'll take concrete steps to close the gap. Find out if they are. If the agent commits to improvement, outline the next steps, make sure there's clarity, training, action, and support. Great. Let's focus on getting you back on track. So tips to success. Stick to the facts, not feelings. Use silence every time there's a question mark. Let them sit in it. Let them think out their answer. End with clear next step. There's got to be clarity. Have them repeat to you what the expectation is. Have them send you an email with it written out. Read the email. Make sure that what they have said matches what was discussed. And if not, immediately discuss that. So, role play. This is important as we have these, that you and your leadership team take time to role play things like this. Use a real scenario or a fictitious one. Every AD has a scenario that you've dealt with in the past of where you've had to have a tough conversation about somebody's performance. And so I challenge you guys, when you're doing leadership development, use this as a role play. Role play scenarios of how you have the conversation using the ACT, ACT method, making sure you're referring back to the talk, making sure you pause for clarity, pause for reflection, and then clarify where we go from here towards the end. So to recap, use ACT. You have the 3 gaps. Either it's will, skill, or clarity. Make sure it's clarity and care. And we provided you with a script. Of course, this recording will be, or this training will be recorded. So it's available online if you need to go back in and go through it again. That's just, hey guys, that's just a suggested script. Most of y'all can handle this without a script, but it does give you some ideas. Pick one person to coach this week. Use it on one person this week. Schedule the conversation today. And then report to the AD who it was and when it was scheduled. I guess that's if you assign this to your GAs, maybe. I missed that. Maybe report to the AO. But as you're training your leadership team, doing leadership development, make sure that you are modeling this in front of your GAs, observing your GA, and then you can delegate it to the GA, and then make sure that this is done weekly. Every week, you should be having these conversations with your team based on where their performance is to help them go from a 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, a 3 to a 4. The goal here, guys, is to get progress. I don't expect them to go from 0 to 100, but I do expect them to go from 0 to 1. They can't go from 0 to 0. Or 20 to 25, they can't go from 20 to 15. We have to be seeing progress. And you investing your time shows your 100% commitment. They have to invest the time and the effort to show they're 100% effective. So I have, looks like we are 31 minutes in this thing. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And that will conclude our training.